Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 115 of the Still City Insider podcast. We are very grateful today that we're welcoming back for the third time to the show Bryant McFadden, BMac of the All Things Covered podcast, football analysis for CBS Sports, and oh yeah, former Steeler, Super Bowl winner. Just a litany of things we can ramble off here. BMac, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm glad I got the trifecta, right? My third time. That's a big time move for me. You know what I mean? So I appreciate the opportunities, man, and hopefully I won't disappoint.
I'm sure
Craig,
you won't.
Craig Wolfley's going to be disappointed. His three times have now been tied.
We almost
It's
got
it's like Saturday Night Live, where Steve Martin had it like 10 times.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
There's a lot to be excited about here because camp's going to start on July 24th. Hard to believe that we're getting close to it. And BMac, let's just start with the 30,000-foot view here. How does this 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers team look to you?
As I see it right now, constructed, I'm very, very hopeful. I'm very, very optimistic. I think most importantly, you got to start and stop with the additions at the quarterback spot for us, for the Steelers. And we know how important that position is, but I would think the consensus would say this quarterback room is more improved than what it was a year ago around the same time. And with that being said, you have to be overly optimistic. Now, granted, you're playing in a very, very sticky, competitive division, but when you got a quarterback, you have a fighting chance, right? If you don't have a quarterback, the football field, it feels like it's 150 yards that you have to go drive to try to score a touchdown if you don't have significant quarterback play, because it feels like you got to go longer to get in scoring positions. So I'm optimistic because of that. And then secondly, when you look at how the season ended, outside of the playoff debacle for me against the Buffalo Bills, if you look at that stretch of ball games leading into postseason play, our offense really came together, and it mostly started with the guys in the trenches and how we were running the football effectively, how the guys that put their hand in the dirt were creating running lanes for either Najee Harris or Jalen Warren. That was very, very positive to see because we want to win the ball game within the ball game, which is at the line of scrimmage. And then, of course, with our defense, we look at some of the additions, adding Patrick Queen. That's a big time plus. Adding him is a big time plus in two different areas. Number one, that was a position of need for us a year ago defensively with all the injuries to the inside backer position. And if you know anything about the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers defensively, you got to have dogs at the MAC in the buck position for that defense. And we've been still trying to figure things out for quite some time. When you get a guy like Pat Queen into the building who is a proven commodity, you pretty much answer all of those concerns. And then secondly, as I was stating, you take a key contributor from a divisional foe and you instantly add him to your team defensively, or makes your team better. And it gives the Ravens a blow, to say the least, because he was a big-time player for their defense. So it's been a successful offseason, guys. I think we all would agree with Omar and the job he's done improving the roster via the draft or via free agency. So we just got to stay healthy, of course. I wouldn't mind another move here or there as we get ready for the start of the season. But as I see it today, I'm optimistic about this season. I think we can make some noise.
And BMac, I just want to, you started there talking about the quarterback position, and really that's where all the conversation has focused this offseason. And it looks like it's Russell Wilson's job to lose with the experience that he has, the Super Bowl victory under his belt. What is it going to take for him to mesh with this offense, and what's going to have to happen for him to have success with this team? And if we're talking at the end of the season to where he struggled, what is it that's going to be that will hold him back?
You know what? I think when it comes to any quarterback being a part of a new regime, a new offense, a new team, the best way to get early signs of success is building relationships. And I know people always highlight what you do on the football field, what you do in between the lines. That's important. But what you do off the football field is important as well, building relationships. And the reason why I know that's important, the championship teams that I was a part of there in Pittsburgh, we had quality, sound relationships off the football field. And it made it easier for us to do good business on the football field when we actually liked each other off the football field. And it's no different in any business that you're a part of. If you're working with other people, that is a team atmosphere. And for that team to be successful, you have to have likable relationships intact for you to do whatever it is that you need to do. You know what I mean? So for us, building those relationships, which would bring in respect, which will bring in a likeness, which will bring in the ability to understand, I'm going to war for this guy because I like him. And I know he's going to war for me because he likes me as well. And that's what makes great quarterbacks so special. You know, when Tom Brady, I remember this story, and it was so impactful because I'm like, that's what you got to do. When Tom Brady went to Tampa, when he left New England, I remember they said one of the first things he did was he asked for every player's phone number that was a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. Starters, backups, practice squad players, it didn't matter. He asked for every player's phone number. He reached out to every single player. That was the first building block to creating a relationship off the football field. So I'm not saying Russ need to do anything like that. You know, he's been there for quite some time, so he's had opportunity to really interact with the guys. But to answer your question, yeah, that's the first telling sign when you build those relationships off the field, you have successful relationships on the football field. And what would need to happen, if I'm not mistaken, your second question, for him to lose the starting job that he currently has, and I agree with you, it's his job to lose. Either two things, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, or agree or disagree. Either he gets injured or we're losing ball games. Mm-hmm. That's it.
I just wrote today they'd have to lose a lot of ball games because
yes,
Tomlin won't blow in the wind. Look how long he stuck with Trubisky through that bad stretch last year. He gave him his full 10 days to prepare in that third game. BMac, are you hearing that Russell is reaching out and building relationships? You brought it up that way, so I assume you're here. I mean, I see it in the locker room. It sure looks like he's going out of his way to communicate and be that guy. Are you hearing anything?
Yeah, Jim, I'm hearing that he's been an ultimate team guy, and it's great that you gave us your, viewpoint with Russ because you're there in the locker room, right? So when you see that interaction, you kind of get an understanding what the foundation is for Russell compared to some of the things that we were hearing from Denver, not knowing how true they were or not. But remember, some of the things coming from Denver was that Russ had his own cubicle or own locker in the locker room. He wasn't with the rest of the guys. I don't know how true that was, but those were rumors that were circulating from Denver, right? Even if it wasn't true, just hearing those rumors doesn't sound good. Right? It doesn't sound good. But from what I've heard, yes, he's been a great teammate. He's been interacting with players. He's been around in the community. Think about this. How many times have we seen Russ doing something in the city, right? Supporting teammates or just supporting the city of Pittsburgh.
That's Pirates.
Yeah, the Pirates. You guys know, going to hockey games.
Yeah.
That's the Steelers organization. It's not just about the Steelers, it's about the entire community. That the foundation was built on the city of Pittsburgh, the surrounding area around, not just Allegheny County, but some of the other spots as well. So just seeing that makes me feel good compared to knowing that we got a guy he has a newfound sense of motivation. He's excited and he's embracing the new culture that he's a part of, which is Pittsburgh.
BMac, I've been rereading, having you on, and we're getting Dick LeBeau on for our next episode too. So I'm rereading my Polamalu book. I haven't read it in a while because when you write a damn book, you think it sucks because you're sick of it, right? I'm reading, I'm like, man, this is good. And the love on that 2008 team. I mean, they said you were on both the 2008 and 2005 teams, but the love on that 2008 team had grown since 2005 is what you may have even said it. There were several players, Dick LeBeau was saying it. Is that because you were winning? You had already won a Super Bowl and you were winning. Does winning cause the chemistry, or does chemistry cause the winning?
Chemistry caused the winning. I think it starts there. And the reason why I say that, when I got drafted to Pittsburgh, I was so amazed in how together the team was. I was like, wow, like the team in Pittsburgh was more together than some of the teams I was a part of in college. And the thing is, you don't oftentimes get that because the game of football in the NFL is all about competition, not just about Sunday, but the week of. You're competing, keeping the backup in check, even though he's trying to come get your position. You know, you're competing to keep him away. But for us, when I got to Pittsburgh, everyone liked each other. Everyone wanted to be around each other. So the chemistry was already there. And kudos to the organization because they were able to bring in like-minded guys, guys that were selfless. You think about our championship teams, the personalities all coexist together. Defensively, if we didn't care who got the glory, who got the praise, as long as we did our job effectively enough to win ball games. That's all we cared about, right? And we always did things together. So you had quality leaders that I was drafted with in 05 that kind of set the foundation for years to come after our 05 championship that led to the 08 championship when you talk about our relationships grew thicker. So chemistry paves the way for success. And when you think about championship-like efforts, the most important thing that tears down the championship pedigree is a lack of chemistry. Lack of chemistry. When you look at the Bulls run in the 90s, what broke that down? Chemistry, a lack of togetherness. When you look at the Golden State run, what broke that down? A lack of togetherness when they had issues with KD and Draymond. Think about, in those championship-like dynasties, more recently than none. You know what I mean? What broke down New England? Even though I hate to talk about the Patriots because you guys know how we feel about the Patriots, but let's keep it real. What broke down their potential, string on the NFL? Lack of chemistry.
Well, here's what broke. I just got to the chapter 2012. After the 2011 season, I mean, you guys, in 2011, you lost to Tebow, but you were still a really good team, statistically a really good defense, getting a little long in the tooth. But there were a ton of injuries going into the Tebow game. Ryan Clark, for one, couldn't play in Denver. And, Pouncey, Casey got hurt in the game. Aaron Smith was out, on and on and on, a bunch of guys. So it wasn't just a poorly played game and losing to Tebow. You guys were still good. But after that 2011 season, I think that was your last season. I think Ferrier was done. I think Hines Ward was done. It was starting to leave in mass. And then in the 2012 training camp, the Young Money crew, the wide receiver crew becomes known and becomes giving themselves nicknames. Antonio Brown starts a brawl with Ryan Clark and Troy on the practice field that Kevin Colbert had to break up. It was a sharp change in character, and that seemed to be where you guys' dynasty really changed. So I know you don't want to point no fingers at Antonio Brown and that gang, but that's where the culture change seemed to happen. And here's another thing about culture change. People like you and Ferrier and Aaron Smith are special for a reason. Hines Ward, you don't get these, but you don't just replace them with anybody. It's not like you decided to change culture. Sometimes you just can't replace a Hines Ward. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to point fingers when I say there was a culture change, but let's just say the special people started retiring.
And you know what? I'll say this too, guys. I'll say when you look at the business side of things in the National Football League, you have to make business decisions as an organization. But sometimes it is worth the risk of keeping a key component involved to some degree just to kind of create and keep that foundational piece alive in the locker room. Because you talked about that 2012 team and you started to see a change of the guard when it came to new generational like players compared to what we had when we were in championships. It was like, now these guys still need to have someone to learn from and see how to do things. You know what I mean? When I got drafted in 05, I remember Jerome Locker was not too far from mine, right? And I remember Jerome used to always emphasize, and I used to hear him talk, and sometimes he would specifically talk to me. He said, you got to understand something, young buck. At some point in time, we're going to need everybody. You might not be a guy that's playing right now, but at some point in time, we're going to need you, regardless if it's on Sunday or the week of. But we got to know we can count on you. And the best way for you to feel like you're one of us is to know that we're not just going to count on you on the football field. We're going to count on you off the football field. And we're going to build relationships. So my rookie year, one of the biggest like surreal moments for me outside of winning the Super Bowl, OTAs, rookies were there, veterans there. And I was hearing JB saying it was getting together at Deuce Staley's house to play video games and play cards. Something we did annually, weekly. And I remember he said, hey, Rook. I'm like, he can't be talking to me. That's Jerome Bettis. Like talking to me. I just got here like a few weeks in. Hey, Rook, Florida State. So I looked, I'm like, yeah, what's up? And I was so like starstruck to say the least. I'm like, I'm talking to JB. He's asking me a question. Like, what did I do? He said, hey, man, get some of the rookies together and come by Deuce's house tonight. We all getting together, play cards, play some video games, order some food. I was like, huh? For real? Everybody, get everybody. I don't care if you got drafted, if you didn't get drafted. If you're a free agent, I don't care. Get everybody, come by Deuce Staley house. We're going to fraternize, have a good time. Instantly, he won me. Like, I was like, whatever I need to do for us to win ball games and to help him, I'm running through a wall.
Well, guess what? Jerome Bettis only gained 600 some yards that year. But all the things you're saying is you might as well add 1,000 to that total for the value he was to that team.
And also, too, my point was, as an organization, when you got guys like that around, yeah, they might not be at their best to be able to contribute on Sundays like how they used to. But the contribution they can give you the week of when it comes to leadership and just instilling that connection will be forever felt in the organization, because when you come in now, you say, I learned how to do X, Y, and Z from him. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to pass the baton down to this guy. This is how you do it. So that's how you keep that same chemistry, togetherness going when some of the key components that created that are no longer there. And I wish more organizations would do that. Yeah, bite the bullet and say, you know what? We know he might not give us what he needs, but what he can give us off the football field will forever be felt on game days, because he's keeping something intact that is needed when it comes to winning ball games. As I stated, chemistry, togetherness, family, you know what I mean? Keeping that orchestrated for us to be successful, because that's what our championship runs were built on.
Yeah. So to bring this around and make it more relevant, you make me think of Cam Hayward. I mean, okay, he's 35, bad year, injury plagued year last year. There's no way I'd get rid of him. And I don't demand he take a salary cut either. I don't know you want to risk losing him that way. And I think, and that's why I wanted to bring up the whole chemistry aspect. I think this team right here has some of the best chemistry since I've seen that 2010 team. The way they recruited, the way the players stepped up and zoomed Russell Wilson to recruit him. It's bad for Kenny Pickett, but, these players banded together. They saw an opportunity and they all helped the recruiting effort. And I think, as you said, they got some dogs on defense, and Patrick Queen isn't the only one. They went out and got Deshaun Elliott's another former Raven. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be the strong safety they've needed next to Minka, and then also be the third and medium guy in the slot. I think he'll cover what Cam Sutton can't do the first half of the year. Mm-hmm. I think Dante Jackson's fitting in. He's a very interesting, enthusiastic cornerback. He still has his speed that he showed in the spring. There are some positions on offense that are questionable, but I think this is the best defense since 2010.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, I wanted to get your thoughts. I'm not sure that you've kept up on all the itty bitty pieces, but go ahead, give me your thoughts on that.
I'll say this. Of course, a good bill of health is very, very important.
Yeah.
And the one concern that I have on our defense is the lack of depth at the cornerback position. That's one concern I have. Because you talk about Joey Porter Jr. going into his sophomore year, Dante Jackson, who, Coach Tomlin, he's had a nice love affair with for quite some time,
He's
coming
had a
out.
crush on him.
Yeah, no question, coming out of LSU. So finally getting him, in the building was super important. But outside of that, who can you trust? Like, Corey Trice, we know about the skill set, but can he stay healthy? You know what I mean? So that's the one area of concern that I have defensively is the lack of depth, at the cornerback position. And you talked about Cam Sutton missing the first half of the season. We've been trying to figure this nickel thing out for quite some time. You know what I mean? The nickel and dime position, more so than nickel than anything. We've been trying to figure that out for quite some time. So what's going to happen at that position? But everything else, oh, I love it. You get Cam Hayward back. If he doesn't have a new contract by the start of the season, he's going to be disgruntled and motivated. You know what I mean? And the only thing that slowed Cam down a year ago was the injury. That's it. You know what I mean? Because he's still one of the best technicians, at the 3 technique for our defense in the 3-4 scheme of things. So I love it. That's my only concern, just the cornerback depth, the lack thereof. But everything else, I agree with you.
Well, you're leading me into the obvious question that you may not want to answer, but your cousin. I mean, talking about cornerback depth, is Patrick Peterson talking to the Steelers? Is that a possibility?
Well, as of late, I haven't heard anything, but I know personally from Pat that he wants to come back to Pittsburgh. And Pat is the type of player that I was talking about when you were talking about being a glue guy. His impact might not be felt on Sunday like it used to be in his prime years, but he can leave more of an impact the week of. And if you look at how he tutored and mentored Joey Porter Jr. throughout his entire rookie campaign, being in his ear in the meeting room, being in his ear on the football field, practice times, and just seeing how JP Jr. flourished. And JP Jr. would tell you he appreciated Pat for everything that he was doing for him to the utmost. And not just the JP Jr., but some of the other young guys that had to fill in. Think about how many different faces were playing cornerback for the Pittsburgh Steelers a year ago. When you look at all the injuries in the secondary, you had to move guys around. Pat had to play safety, something he's never done before. Had to play nickel, something he's never done before. So, yeah, to answer your question, man, he would love the opportunity because he wants to give it one more go, and he wants to try to compete for a championship. You know what I mean? That was one of the things he was elated about last year when he signed with Pittsburgh. And, of course, a lot of things happened injury-wise and things like that. They kind of halted the championship aspirations, but he still would love to go. And as of right now, I haven't heard anything, but you better believe you're talking about a selfless guy. And Pat knows this, guys. He's at a point in his career where he's not that locked down, shut down aside of a football field corner anymore. But what he is a guy who's selfless and will be willing to do whatever you ask him to do, a la 2023, where he was asked to do so many different things and never put up a fight and just did so with a smile on his face.
Oh, he was a joy in the locker room to talk to. Always such a professional. And I feel bad that we kind of jinxed him by giving him the Rooney Award. We once voted Ryan Clark the Rooney Award, and he came into the media room for the press conference and blasted us. He said, "This is a jinx award. This is the award you give to somebody who's on their way out the door." That's how it was when I was with the Redskins. So I'll never forget that. And it does kind of happen. And I don't know that we were thinking that way when we voted for Pat and he won the award, but he was such a professional, and he was so intelligent and fun to talk to and enthusiastic. And PZ Jr. would always talk about how much he was helping him. So we knew he was a good guy too. Yep. And I thought he had another year in him, especially as a reserve. So I wouldn't mind seeing that at all, but I hope I didn't jinx him.
Yeah. And there's still a lot of time left to be played. You know what I mean? When it comes to now in week 1 or week 2 of the season. So hopefully he gets an opportunity to get back to Pittsburgh, and he's in shape. He's ready to go. And, it's not like he has to learn anything new because the entire staff, defensively, Coach Austin and the rest of his guys are still intact. So we have to wait and see how it plays out. But, I'll keep my fingers crossed.
And BMac, that brings me to the last question I'm thinking of here, and it ties into, depth and maybe incomplete positions on this team that they could still make a move at. And I saw that Mike Garofalo reported that the contract negotiations between the Niners and Brandon Ayuk have failed, that he's officially requested a trade. We know that there's been some smoke around potential trade between Pittsburgh and the 49ers. But outside of wide receiver, what other positions can you envision the Steelers team making a move at to improve depth or just the overall position in general?
You know what? Wide receiver is it for me, guys. I talked about defensively, the cornerback spot. There may be an addition, maybe on a defensive line. It's not a huge need, but outside of that, it has to be wide receiver. And the reason why is you don't have any proven commodities outside of George Pickens. You get Van Jefferson in, who's an experienced player, been around the block for quite some time, but his last few seasons, he hasn't really done a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He played for 2 organizations last year and really didn't give anything significant for either side. Because if it was, he would have never left the Rams. And then when he went to Atlanta, it didn't really play out as they thought as well. But hopefully reuniting him with Arthur Smith, who brought him to the ATL there in Pittsburgh, could help. But outside of that, you look at Cordero Patterson, who's more of a joystick type player. Is he going to be more allocated to the running back spot or wide receiver? You don't know. You're still looking for Calvin Austin to turn the corner. You know what I mean? So Rome Wilson, who you drafted in the 3rd round, you never know with rookie wide receivers in their first year what they can give you, especially if they don't have a lot of experience surrounding them in the room. So that's my concern, because I love our offensive linemen, the depth, tight end, love. Of course, we talked about the quarterbacks. You talk about the running back room, love. That's the one concern you like, wide receivers. And get this is the first time that I can remember in quite some time where the wide receiver room could be the biggest question mark offensively, because we've done such a great job with the wide receiver room, drafting or bringing guys in. But this is the year when you factor in losing Deontay Johnson, and still not really finding a comparable replacement. Because if you're telling me you swap Deontay for Van, I would say based on the previous, seasons, Deontay may be a step above Van in production, given the quarterback concerns. But still, Deontay was a wide receiver 1. You know what I mean? So it's not like we made a lateral move, losing Deontay and bringing in Van Jefferson along with some of the other components. So wide receiver for me.
Yeah, but BMac, I saw you at one spring practice. I don't know if Van the Man stood out to you there, and I know you've watched more Atlanta ball than I have. But I tell you, Van really grew on me. He looks like that guy. I mean, he's 6'1.5", big guy. He can really run under a deep ball. I think he's everything you look for at that position. Now, am I being teased by a guy in shorts? It's happened before. But he really looked the part in the spring.
And I'll say this, before he got injured with the Rams, he was definitely a big-time contributor for their offense. And then the injury happened, and then, of course, Puka Nacua came to the party. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he became expendable. And then Atlanta, what was the issue? What was more the issue? A decline in production, individually speaking, from Van, or quarterback issues?
Oh, the quarterbacks were terrible.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So now, if you're telling me we're going to battle with the wide receivers that we currently have, we're not making any additions, one would think we can get a better Van Jefferson in Pittsburgh with the quarterbacks we have than what he did not have in Atlanta. Now, this is the kicker, though, guys. In the AFC North, as you guys know, it's a different division of football. Defenses play ball differently in the AFC North. And, people talk about, well, what do you mean the AFC North style of play is different? It's different. It's more physical. It's like old school in a new age style, because everyone else plays ball differently in other divisions. But in the AFC North, especially in November, December, when it's gloomy outside at 1 p.m. Sunday and it looks like it's 6 p.m. and it's cold and it's frigid and it's like, it's different. You know what I mean? And that's a division where it's not for the pretty. You got to be able to get it from the muscle. You got to be able to get dirty. And hopefully, if we don't make any moves, we got everything else in place where we can get the best out of all of our guys. But I'll just say this is a different year because we've never really had these question marks at the wide receiver position. Jim, you've been covering the team for quite some time. Have you ever remembered, oh boy, wide receivers?
2016, they went to the AFC Championship game with Colby Hamilton at wide receiver opposite AB. So I can't. I mean, Martavis Bryant was always a problem, you know, in and out, whatever was happening with him.
But you knew at any given time with Martavis, whatever was happening with him off the field, but if he was on the football field, you don't want to take him lightly. No,
and AB, of course.
Oh no, yeah. AB is. I mean, you know,
he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, even though he did some of the most boneheaded things. He quit on a team, and he's still going to get in the Hall of Fame. That's how good he was.
Say that again.
Just let me say this about Van Jefferson again. Who was his coach in Atlanta?
Arthur Smith.
So somebody liked him.
Yeah, and that's what I said. You know, hopefully being reunited with Arthur, you know, could definitely get the best Van Jefferson because we're going to need him. We know who GP is, but we're going to need some other guys. Mm-hmm. Like we really going to need some other guys, and arguably the most difficult, toughest division in football. You know, you're not just going to sit here and say we're going to run the football all the time against those defenses that Pittsburgh will see twice a year. No, you're going to need some playmakers that can make things happen, catching passes, and it's going to be someone other than George Pickens.
Well, I tell you, I would be completely shocked if it was Brandon Ayuk because he wants $30 million a year, and I can't see any chance of them bringing in a guy and paying him more than TJ Watt. It's part of their chemistry magic. They don't do that kind of thing. That's for the Washington Redskins or whatever they're called. So, that kind of ownership to get that flashy, expensive free agent. The Steelers don't do that for a reason. And I can't see the big, expensive receiver coming here.
I agree. You know, I just did a hit on CBS HQ about Brandon Ayuk requesting a trade. I'm like, not surprising. But for Pittsburgh, two things. You got to pay him north of $30 million. I agree with you. I don't see that happening from the Steelers. And you got to give up whatever it is San Francisco is asking for. And that's the thing. What people have to understand, there are teams that want Brandon Ayuk. There's teams that are willing to try to go get Brandon Ayuk. But you can't tell me that there's going to be a team that's going to give San Francisco everything they're asking for, maybe 2 firsts, who knows what they're asking for. And you got to pay him north of $30 million. That's why he hasn't been moved. And that's why it's going to be very, very difficult for him to be moved to any team, better yet, the Pittsburgh Steelers, because San Francisco, they're in a very, very nice position with Brandon Ayuk. Well, he's going into his 5th year where he's going to get $14 million. So if he don't show up, he's being fined because it's not like he has a franchise tag over his head. Right. And you still don't have to do anything with him outside of try to get him a new deal. If he doesn't like your new deal that you're offering, well, Brandon, you just sit out. If that's the case, if you just sit out, because San Francisco, Jim, they're not going to move him for anything outside of what they want in return. Yeah. They're not going to just sit and say, we're going to just do you a favor and just move you. No, that's not happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, very good.
Yeah, BMac, great stuff. We appreciate it. We can't wait to have you back on for number 4, and then you'll own that top spot exclusively. But where can listeners check out your work, talk about the podcast a little bit?
Yeah, well, check me out as we get ready for the football season. Upcoming college, NFL, same. CBS Sports HQ, Jeremy Jim is where people can catch me. Social media, my handle, name, same, BMac_sports talk for all social handles. Of course, the podcast with my cousin Patrick Peterson, All Things Covered. We do weekly as well. And shoot, boy, I tell you what, a great episode would be Pat making it known that he's going right back up to Allegheny County, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jim. Jeremy, that'd be great.
I'd love it, man. Hey, BMac, I'm sure I'll see you at camp. And Thanks again for joining us. You're a real pro and you're a great media guy. Really, putting us to shame, and this is our business. You're just learning on the fly, and you're doing great.
Man,
So
listen,
keep it up, buddy.
I
I'll
learned
see
from
you.
great guys while I was in the locker room when it came to our media outlets there in Pittsburgh. And remember, I talked about just a community, you know what I mean? So you guys are doing a great job, Jeremy, Jim. I appreciate the invite. Yeah, I will be up at camp. And you know what? We're gonna get a chance when we're up there, we get a chance to look at our wide receivers and let's have something to talk about because we're gonna need our guys to show up big time. And I do believe we got quarterbacks that can help our wide receivers out. So Van, let's go, Van Jefferson. Let's go, baby.
Let's go, Van. Get it done. All right. Well, BMac, thanks so much. We'll post all that information in the show notes for everyone to check out BMac's work. Jim, great seeing you. We will see you back here next week, everyone. We're going to have Dick LeBeau on the show for episode number 116. Everybody take care. Have a phenomenal week.
Thanks, BMac.
Guys.